What was your Thanksgiving drama this year? My dad's wife is back on meth. She hid his keys inside his car so that he can't find them, but it will still start, push to start car, so she can drive without him knowing. She also stuck a magnetic tracker thing on under his seat. I also found out that my cousin with Down syndrome can knock back whiskey just like she's drinking water. She parties harder than I ever could, and I'm jealous. The drama was all only in my head, but I got through it, didn't drink a drop. A large mixing bowl full of yams disappeared into nothing while everyone was trying to get food on the table. We have looked absolutely everywhere there is to look and it's just gone. 9 people seriously questioning their sanity now. There are lots of things that could have happened to the yams themselves, but the bowl being missing is a real head scratcher. My grandpa who has dementia asked why there was cranberry sauce on his pants and if my mother could clean it up. No one made anything with cranberries. He was bleeding from his penis. To the hospital we went, and he had a massive kidney stone he was trying to push out stuck halfway in his urethra, which also, as you guessed, tore it up and made him bleed via urethral rupture. Edit, trying to hit these comments one by one, so sorry for the delay. So we'll just make an edit. It's not that he can't feel pain. He just can't communicate it. When we feel sadness, happiness, anger, we usually communicate whether it's verbal or otherwise. Pain in this case falls under that category and is something we use to communicate what's wrong, but as stated previously, is something he has a hard time doing. Dementia is a name for a group of diseases. Just like cancer, there's Alzheimer's, frontotemporal, vascular, and one other I can't think of. Most common being Alzheimer's, which basically degrades the ability to process important brain functions, such as communication, memory, learning new things. My grandpa was diagnosed with it back in 2019, so he has progressed to a point where I don't think he knows who he was having dinner with. I appreciate everyone's concern. He is at the hospital and is okay now. My 21-year-old sister will graduate from college in less than a month. My brother congratulated her on being the first person in our family to graduate college without getting pregnant. Turns out that's not true. She started sobbing and got in her car and drove away. Whoops. My in-laws have a place at a lake an hour or so from our house. Every time we go, my sil takes the bedroom with a full bed and toddler bed for herself and her one child, who sleeps with her. Her other 2 children sleep with my in-laws. My husband and our 3 children are left trying to figure out where to sleep, usually on an air mattress on the living room floor. Well, we came early and took the room. She is livid, stomping around and slamming doors. Has been for 4 hours. My mom died last night. This Thanksgiving pretty much sucked. Luckily, she had plenty of family that loved her and it's been alright grieving. Unfortunately, my sister's last interaction with her was doing CPR. She's traumatized. Everyone is sad. Petty family drama and politics did not make an appearance this year. Just lots of prayers and people telling me they are sorry. 2 bites into my meal at my mother-in-law's house, my Ring doorbell alerted me to someone ringing my doorbell. I pulled it up and catch an old man entering my house. I bolted out of my chair and went home. She lives close. I get there and no one is there. I pull up the video and see he exited like 20 seconds after he entered, grumbling I'm wrong house. The funny thing was, as we were leaving, I thought to myself, did I lock the front door? What are the fucking odds? My food was still warm when I got back to my mother-in-law's house. My 12-year-old cousin wouldn't eat any of the food that my 80-year-old grandma spent the whole day making because it wasn't Brazilian. His parents are 100% Italian and we do not have any Brazilian relatives. His parents are brain surgeons, so they're loaded. And their excuse was that he doesn't eat homemade stuff. Only high-end? I have no idea what that had to do with Brazilian food, but I'm assuming it's some sort of phase. I don't even think he said Brazilian food before he did. Holy shit, I woke up with a lot of replies, but for clarification, my dad and his whole side of the family were born in Italy but had me here, so I'm American, and they celebrate Thanksgiving for me and my siblings, younger cousins. Had to call a tow truck on some teenager, friend of front neighbor's kid, because he wouldn't move his car that was blocking my mom's driveway. She told him to move it since she needed to get something for dinner. He answered that he shouldn't had to move it because it's a public street. I go get the stuff and then get home. I again tell him to move it because I want to park up the driveway. Shouts at me that I can find parking up the street. Now he has no car for Thanksgiving and cop gave him a ticket. Macron /_Sue_/Macron. In-laws are visiting from out of town. Except father-in-law decided to leave yesterday and go home before Thanksgiving and did not come back. He told my wife and I, just not his wife. Mother-in-law is still here. FYI, this is normal for him. My mom's had some issues that I think my dad has been downplaying. She has good days and bad, but today was bad. Nothing she said made sense. No sentence connected to another sentence. And sometimes the end of a sentence wouldn't connect to the beginning. And she was very frustrated with everyone that we didn't understand. She had conversations with people that weren't there. Swore people were there that were either dead or hadn't shown up. It was just my dad, her, and I. Very obvious who wasn't there. She saw me after dinner and said, "I'm so glad you finally made it. You missed it. It was a madhouse earlier with the kids running around." I could go on and on, But my dad brushed it off as her just being sleep deprived. It was kinda like talking to someone who was half awake and half dreaming. But this has happened a few times before. Not as bad, but she has refused to see a doctor. The tearjerker was when we gently helped her to understand that all night no one else had been here. And I could see it in her eyes. She said, "You were right. I do need to see someone." So I guess that's what we are doing in the morning. I hope she's having a good day. And it will be easier to bring her. Is this dementia? Ike, man, I've never seen it before. It sounds like it. Hun, I'm sorry. It's possibly being exacerbated by a UTI. You would not believe how confused that can make people. My mom wasn't too far down her dementia path when she had a UTI. And it was like, holy shit, she's totally gone. No coning back. But after some antibiotics and fluids, she was back to how she was. Try to get her to see a doctor as soon as you can. Hugs from Ireland. My mom has a form of dementia and she just got over a UTI. I had no idea how much worse that makes it until this. She got so much, relatively, better after a round of antibiotics and fluids. I hope Optas help her go to the doctor. There are medications that can be taken earlier in Alzheimer's to help. My grandmother died from it and for years everyone made excuses about her just getting older, being tired or forgetful, etc. I always wonder if she could have had a few more happy years. Maybe even got to know her great-grandchildren. If she had gotten help sooner. Who knows though? It's so hard as a family or loved one to realize there is something wrong. It's a heartbreaking thing. The gravy was a war crime. The plastic cooking utensil melted into it. I was the first to find out. My cousin unfortunately came out as a flat earther while I was showing off my brand new telescope I bought recently. I got tired of all their mockery and destructive jokes and ended up leaving out of the blue. Best Thanksgiving ever. I finally learned to have some self-respect. My aunt pretended to be paralyzed from COVID to avoid taking care of her sickly mother. Had to work. Multiple residents in the lobby. One resident drops part of her meal she was taking to family. Small child is knocked over by the extremely helpful dog who couldn't wait to assist with cleanup. One resident argued with her daughter when she arrived. Told her daughter that she wasn't going to dinner because half the family is unvaccinated. Another resident had their plans completely fucked when her son's transmission went out and was unable to pick her up, and poor guy was stuck at the halfway point and had to wait a few hours for a tow. And the last of it, so far, dude comes back from family dinner. He stops to chat. Apparently their holiday meal almost came to blows when the black sheep of the family turned up uninvited and tried to bum money from their elderly mother. Still have a few people out and still have a few hours left on shift, so there may be more to come as people stop by the desk to talk about their evening. Met my cousin's fiancée for the first time. She is clearly mentally unwell. She dominated all conversation with her non-stop ramblings, which included a story about the first time she masturbated and asked that we buy a baby xylophone for her chickens as a wedding gift for the human couple. Edit, fix typo and clarified the wedding issue. For context, the masturbation story came after a rant about being raised in a religious household and no longer being religious. Sexual behavior was discouraged. I masturbated a lot. I started at 13. Xylophone request came because I have a 7-month-old baby who doesn't have a xylophone. I'm sure they are great for chickens, but in the context of non-stop talking it was just another layer of insanity. Many more things were said, but they are all a blur at this point. Wild scene. Thanks for the award. My mom found out a week ago that she has terminal lung cancer and has 6 to 12 months to live. Needless to say, there was a cloud over the meal. My sister-in-law let everyone know that her husband has a small penis. One Christmas Eve, my dad's then new girlfriend blurted out that my dad has a thick penis at the dinner table in the presence of all his kids, including me, their so's and his sister. I had never seen a woman in her 40s turn that red into the stunned silence that followed when it registered what she said. My dad hid his face in his hands for a solid 5 minutes. I forgot the exact context. It's been 10 plus years, but it was an absent-minded off-the-cuff comment in response to something someone said. She didn't just randomly throw it out there. I got first and second degree burns on my foot and calf from boiling water. My mom died in a house fire about 6 months ago, and my dad's new girlfriend, of less than 2 months, who I've only met twice, just moved into the house after repairs were finished. This complete stranger then moved her 10-year-old daughter in as well and completely decorated our childhood home in her family pictures and ugly Texas-themed decor. And then they didn't invite either me or my brother to Thanksgiving dinner, which has never happened in either of our lives before. Really hoping 2022 is a better year. My kids got hammered wed night. One got left at the bar and walked 3 miles to get home. I woke up 3 a.m. and saw that one kid was missing, so I called him. He was still a mile from home, so I drove to get him. When I got to him, the police were questing him. Said they had a report of a man with a weapon having a mental health crisis. Luckily they got another call and let my doofus go home with me. A long time ago I got really drunk at a bar, and when it was time to go home I walked for 2 hours to a house I hadn't lived in for over 5 years. It was getting light by that time and I stopped in the driveway realizing I didn't live there anymore and turned around and walked back for 2 hours to my apartment near the bar I had been at. This was 25 years before Uber existed. So yeah, Young drunk people do stupid things. Showed up to the in-laws. Mill nowhere to be seen. Phil is in the kitchen working on almost finished dinner. We're told Mill isn't feeling well and is in the bathroom. Husband goes to check on her. Comes back a while later. Turns out she was stressed and ornery earlier in the day, so Phil offered her one of his edibles he has for medical purposes. She ate her first ever edible on Thanksgiving. Got dinner halfway done. Then ended up on the floor of the bathroom with dizzy spells and nausea. By the time we finished up dinner she had fallen asleep. We moved her to her bed, then ate dinner without her. It was weird. The power went out at the host's house and I ended up cooking and hosting at the last minute. After finishing off my truck stop turkey meal in my big rig truck, I went to use the facilities. Guy in the stall next to me was loudly watching funny videos on his phone and whacking off and moaning and intermittently laughing at the video. My mother-in-law always buys Thanksgiving dinner, and this time she didn't notice she bought the raw turkey, and it wasn't until an hour before dinner when she learned she had to cook it rather than warm it up. My dad and stepmom were ragging on me, which is pretty normal. I came to their house for Thanksgiving and my brother showed up. My brother and I haven't seen each other in about 4 years. Anyway, so they're going on about me and my brother is getting visibly uncomfortable. They've been like this to me my whole life, and I think my brother had that realization very suddenly. Same as I did when my girlfriend pointed it out. It was good to see someone get upset about the things they say to me. It makes me realize I'm not crazy. My parents' cat chose them after fires took over our state last Thanksgiving. She came to the door and decided she was ours. They tried to find her owner with no luck. Thanksgiving morning this year, cat is missing. My parents are yelling about how she stayed for a year and chose to go back. They're tearing up the house. She had just been to the vet, so they thought maybe she was upset. Hours later they find her in a closet they already looked in. She was cuddled up in some blankets and sleeping. I think she was sore from a vaccine she got. My mom is in tears. My dad won't let the cat's feet touch the floor. She is being carried everywhere and fed treats in his arms. Drama. Edit. Cat tax. My 17-year-old cousin stood up in the middle of dinner and announced he got a girl pregnant and she was keeping the baby. Most people laughed until about 30 awkward seconds went by, and one by one we started realizing that he was in fact serious when he started going into details. My 80-year-old grandma, who hasn't had a drink of alcohol in over a decade, drank wine straight out of the bottle after